everybody, it's Neenah. Welcome back to day 3 of the holiday card series for 2017. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm still playing with some distress inks in my craft room. So today we're using the regular distress inks as well as one of the distress oxide inks. So the first color I'm going to lay down is Tumbled Glass, which happens to be one of my favorite of the lighter shades of blue out of the Distress Inks colors. I'm starting using just one of my blending tools to get down a very, very light shade of blue. Now, as you can see, I'm just going around the corner of my paper. The paper I'm using today is Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock. I'm not using any watercolor cardstock today because I'm not going to be using a lot of water on this paper. So I'm just turning my paper and adding on a faint color of that blue. I am going to be keeping the center of my paper mostly white. I'm just going to add the color around the edges. I want to keep the majority of that center white because we're going to be die cutting out the middle of this piece of paper. So now, since I have that color down fairly well, I'm now going to move on to the peacock feather. And this one here is the Distress Oxide. So this has a totally different hybrid blend. And as you can see, it goes on really, really smooth. And it almost has like a more pop of color. So if you have not had a chance to play with the Distress Oxide ink, I suggest you just pick up one or two to see the difference that it has compared to your regular Distress inks. So now, since I have down most of my color, I'm going to grab my die, place it down on my card just to see if I need to add any more color before I take this over to my die cut machine. I think that looks good. I'm just going to add a little bit more of the peacock feathers. And now I'm going to remove my die and spritz this with water. Now, this is not watercolor paper, so I don't want to oversaturate this paper. So I'm just going to spritz it a little bit. I'm going to come in with a paper towel and blot some of that water up. I'm going to come back and spritz in just the corners because I want to get a little bit more of the splotchiness in the corners. And you see how like I have water specks. Now I do want to go ahead and heat set this with my heat gun before I go to the next step. All right, now since that's dry, I'm going to take this beautiful die from Memory Box and place that right in the center where all the white areas that I left. I'm going to take some washi tape just to hold this down in place before I run this through my die cut machine. Now, since that's done, I'm going to gently pull back on that washi tape because I don't want it to rip my paper. And now I have these gorgeous detailed snowflakes in the middle of my card panel. They're absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to go ahead and flip this over and use my little handy tool here to get out all those tiny little bits inside of my snowflake. And look how gorgeous that die is. It's absolutely beautiful. Now I want to make this a shaker card. So I'm going to grab a backing for this, and it doesn't need to be big. So I'm going to use my die just as a template to cut out some of my netting. Now I've purchased this on a pretty big roll, so I'm just going to cut off a portion of it that I know is going to fit right behind my window. Now you could use acetate or plastic. I just really like using the netting or the tulle as it's called now because it doesn't add a lot of bulk to my card. Now I'm going to use some double-sided tape to tape down my netting. Now I could have used glue but that would cause it to kind of like seep through my netting. So this to me is the best way, instead of actually using even a roller adhesive. Now for the bottom pieces, I use a wider double-sided tape. For the side, I'm just going to use a thinner double-sided tape. So I'm just going to put that piece right there and then cut that off. Now to make sure that this really stays in place, I'm just going to use my finger and kind of burnish in that double-sided tape just to make sure that it stays in place and it does not lift up from my card panel. Now, like I said, I like using this tape because it's super, super strong, and I know that my netting is not going to release up from this tape. I'm going to grab my penknife just to help me in getting off this backing. So now once I get all of this removed, I can go ahead and lay down my netting. Now I like to kind of make sure that I stretch my netting across so it's nice and smooth when it goes across my window, so there's no buckling. So you see, I get a really nice soft background. Now all I have to do is just trim off any of the excess so it's not peeking out. Now, instead of just having a white background when I put my shaker card together, I just decided to grab a little snowflake stamp and just add some snowflakes onto the panel. Now, you're not going to see all these snowflakes because obviously it's going to be a shaker card, but I just wanted to have them in the background. So next I have a assortment of white and clear and shades of blue sequins to fill in my background. And now I'm going to grab that little snowflake panel that I just made and pop that onto the back. Now I did put on another layer of the double-sided tape, so that will hold down my backing. So I'm just going to press that down really, really well. Make sure I'm going around the edges so I have a good seam. And then when you flip this over, we have a really pretty shaker card. And you can see some of the snowflakes behind it as well. Really, really fun and simple card to make. All right, so let's go ahead and finish off this card. I went ahead and grabbed a Happy Holiday sentiment. And this is how we're going to put our sentiment on our card panel. So I went ahead and I stamped that with the Peacock's Feather ink. And I'm going to actually stamp that one more time just so I get a really nice crisp sentiment. That looks fantastic. So now I'm going to go ahead and bring back in my card and we're going to go ahead and put this together. Now for this part, I do want my shaker card to pop up off of my card panel, and my card base is Neenah Solar White 110 pound. So I'm going to take my wide double-sided foam tape and I'm just going to cut it down the center, and this just allows me to be able to use that one piece a little bit further. And plus I didn't need to have such a wide strip, so this kind of saves me as well as using too much of the foam tape, because you know this foam tape is rather expensive. So I just went ahead and put that around the border. I'm going to trim off that tiny excess that I had, and then I can peel this off and pop this up onto my card base. So this is a really pretty and simple card to do. You can easily mass produce this. And I love having a snowflake shaker card, especially for the holiday season. So I'm going to use my grid mat so I can press that firmly into place. And now we have our great little holiday sentiment that can go directly across our window. So I'm just going to grab my scissors and trim this down. And I'm going to add some fishtail ends on both ends of this sentiment. So I'm just going to grab my scissors and cut that right into the ends on both sides. That looks fantastic. Now I'm going to grab my foam tape and put that right on the back of my sentiment and then I can pop that in place. Right across. And I'm not really hiding my pretty little snowflakes either. Now to finish this card off, I'm just going to add 2 little sequins on the outside of my shaker, just to add a little bit of bling to my card panel. I'll pop that down. I'm just going to grab my tweezers just to make sure that they are adhering to the card. All right, that is day number 3. All right, here is the card totally finished. I will see you guys in the next holiday card video. See you guys soon. Bye-bye.